A very good afternoon to you and welcome to Lunchtime News. I'm Stephen Lazarus. Before we go into your stories in detail, let's take a look at the headlines. Ayurveda health workers on strike citing several demands. Man who molested a teenaged girl while impersonating a police officer arrested. Visitors to the Bogambara prison over the past 9 days tops 1 million. And on international news, about 10,000 TB patients are reported annually in Sri Lanka. Ministry of Health. Chinese aircraft spot objects supposedly from missing flight MH370. Now stories in detail. Ayurvedic health workers have commenced a strike action citing several demands, and the chairman of the All Island Ayurveda Health Services Association, Gamini Koslanda, stated that Ayurvedic health workers from the Rajagiriya and Navina Ayurvedic hospitals are participating in the strike.
A number of employees of the Ayurveda Teaching Hospital in Rajagiriya displayed their protest by climbing atop of the roof of one of the buildings at the hospital. Chairman of the All Island Ayurveda Health Service Association, Gamini Koslanda, stated that all employees except the doctors and nurses of the hospital are engaged in this strike. The strikers are demanding that they be given a wage hike parallel to other public service institutions. Palitha Veerakon, Commissioner of Ayurveda, said that steps have been taken to resolve the problems faced by the employees.
Now moving on to more local news, fishermen in Chilla boycotted setting out to sea today in protest of the slashing of the fuel subsidy granted to them. While fishermen in Chilla refrained from setting out to sea, the trading of fish brought from other areas was also halted. The fishermen say that they have not received the subsidy for over 8 months, and they request that they be provided with some relief soon. A police sergeant who participated in a raid on a heroin racket in Thalgaskanda, Putlam, was injured during the raid. The police media unit said that the sergeant was injured at about 11 o'clock last night when the smugglers were being arrested. The sergeant and officer attached to the Putlam anti-vice squad has been hospitalized. The suspects who had initially fled the scene of attacking the sergeant have since been arrested. A man who sexually abused a 17-year-old girl while disguised as a police officer has been arrested in Mathura. Police media spokesperson SSP Ajit Rohan said that he had picked up the girl and a male friend who has accompanied her in his jeep while impersonating a police officer. SSP Rohan stated that the suspect had then dropped the male friend from the jeep and proceeded to sexually abuse the victim who was in his vehicle.
මාතර ප්‍රදේශයේ මාතර නගරේ වෙරළාසල සිටි තරුණ
A complaint has been lodged with the police that a girl who was accompanied by a male friend was molested by someone who had then taken them in a jeep from the Mathura beach and had dropped the male on the way. It was reported that the suspect who impersonated a police officer had taken this couple citing improper behavior, and the suspect has been arrested by the police.
Now, the Prisons Commission notes that over 1 million persons have visited the Bogambara prison premises within the last 9 days.
The Commissioner General of Prisons, Chandraratna Pallegama, stated that within the last few days alone, around 80,000 persons have visited the premises. The Bogambara prison, which vacated its inmates recently, was open for public viewing from the 15th of this month. Pallegama added that this date will be extended until the 29th of this month, following the public's response to this initiative.
Coming up next is Crime Watch.
An individual has been stabbed to death yesterday at a community hall in the Jayagath Road, now in Maharugama. The police stated that the murder was carried out last evening. The victim was identified by the police as a 45-year-old male from the area. Police also added that the suspect in connection with the incident has been identified. The victim's death was a result of a long-term dispute between himself and the suspects. Police stated that the extensive investigations have been launched to locate the suspect, who had now fled the area. An individual was murdered in the Mallavana Giriula junction after being stabbed with a sharp weapon. According to the police, the murder was carried out by two individuals that had arrived on a motorbicycle. The deceased, aged 40, was identified as N.K. Gunasuri, a resident of Pilapitigala. Meanwhile, the parents of the woman, who was set to commit suicide on the 13th of this month, I.M. Indika Kumari, a resident of Minipe, have lodged a complaint at the Hasalaga police stating that her death was a murder and not a suicide. According to our correspondent, the body of the deceased has been exhumed based on a court order and has been placed at the Kandy General Hospital.
I told them not to move the body until we come. I told them that I need to see that. Then I was told that the body was transferred to the Moraya Hospital. Although she's my daughter, I was not able to see her face for at least a minute. Today marks World Tuberculosis Day, and the Ministry of Health says that it receives reports of about 10,000 TB patients annually from Sri Lanka.
The theme of World Tuberculosis Day this year revolves around identifying TB patients and curing them through research and treatment. The Deputy Director of the Ministry of Health National Programme to Eradicate Tuberculosis, Dr. Sudat Samaravira, says that 40% of all reported cases of tuberculosis are from the Western Province. Numerous programs have been organized in view of World Tuberculosis Day today.
Airway residents came across the dead wild elephant near the Salambe waterway in Ninthavur, Ampara today. Wildlife officers said that the elephant had been poisoned.
Wildlife officers said that the animal, which was about 8 feet in height, may have been about 30 years old. Our reporter says that 20 wildlife elephant deaths have been reported from the Ampara district from January this year. Meanwhile, an elephant calf has been taken ill in a field in the Konvava area in Galgamur. Area residents informed wildlife officers in Galgamur that the calf had collapsed in the field. Wildlife officers who arrived at the scene later treated the animal and noted that it was about 2 years old.
As Provincial Council polls ever draws closer, let's take a look at some of the views expressed on the election stage.
There are leaders in this country who have contested elections for the continuity and the needs of their political parties rather than to fulfill the needs of the people. On the one hand, there is the Human Rights Council, and it could be that they are trying to create a terrorist scourge in the country again. There are those who close down factories, drag people onto the streets, take away their jobs and try to achieve their political motives for about 2 weeks to a month.
We tell you directly not to vote for the government this time around. This is not a government that should be strengthened and allowed to continue on. The government has showed us that it is not prepared to adhere to even the minimum level of democracy during an election campaign. They have misused all state assets. What are they doing? It is shameful.
When it shines, you cannot see the leeches, but even in a drizzle, the leeches come out. When it shines again, you cannot find the leeches again either. Similarly, during elections too, when nominations are called for, there is a group that rises and comes among the people. Once the election is done, you will be hard-pressed to find them. We are people who have rejected this leechcraft politics.
At this election, we can hear Mr. Vikramasinghe's aides saying that they are trying to win. They say various things like they are going to light red lights at this time. But Mr. Vikramasinghe is not saying anything of this sort. I have not heard him say anything even through the media. This time he entrusted the election to the Leadership Council, asking them to do it since he couldn't.
Moving on to sports news, Sri Lanka team manager Michael de Souza says that Lahiru Tirimane may not play in Sri Lanka's World 2020 encounter today against the Netherlands. Speaking to News First, Sports First from Bangladesh, de Souza had this to say.
today's match against the Netherlands is being played under lights. It starts at 7:30 Bangladesh time, 7 o'clock Colombo time. So we will have to consider the dew. The dew is very, very heavy. You can collect a bucket of water if you walk 10 yards. So we will have to look at the conditions and decide on the bowling attack. With the batsmen, we don't see any change from the last game.